Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Shiatsu, the Spiritual Level. And here are my colleagues, Dinah and Nicola. really looking forward to this evening. Thank you for joining us. I'll just get the slides up. So let's just make a start. Please say hi in the chat. Let us know where you're from. We've had a bit of a surge of interest. We've actually got something like 800 people registered for these webinars now. So that's very, very exciting. Okay, so as you're logging on, why don't we find out, before we do the review, how much of the last three, because we're in week 4 now, how many of the last 3 have you tuned into? Okay, and so I'm going to share the poll with you now. If you're not going to poll, just click on your answer. How much or many of the last 3 spiritual level webinars have you tuned into, either live or recordings? This is your first time, just in case, or I've seen 1 other webinar, or 2, or all 3. We'll find out if any of you have got a full set of all 3. So if you'd just like to answer the poll, and we'll see how much review we have to do before we get on to the new subjects. Oh, we've got lots of new people. Welcome.
It's all or
welcome.
Nothing.
Yes, all or nothing. Either we've got almost half of you have seen all 3. That's absolutely awesome. And we've got a third of you all are new as well. So you can always catch up, as we'll explain later, with the previous webinars. We're putting them online for you. And just to emphasize that, just have a look at this slide. If you want a full review and revisit the course material, then we've set up an online course for you at New Energy Work. Everything is free at the moment because of the pandemic. And what you've missed, if you've just haven't been here for the last 3, is we did some introductions. We experienced the spiritual level in ourselves and others. We did some basic techniques. We did, Nicola showed us some models for structuring the spiritual level information, looking at the aura and the meridians. And I did a session on the Po, that's the corporeal soul or the material soul. Week 2, I did this whole session on alignment, scanning, and I gave some homework as well for trying out tuning into the hara on the physical and the spiritual level. That was a lot of fun. And we followed that up the week after. Dinah did a wonderful session on the yi, on the spiritual aspect of the stomach and spleen. And then just last week, Nicola did another whole session on chakras, subos, points, working on the spiritual level. And then I did a whole presentation on the Shen, the small Shen of the heart. So all those webinars are recorded for you. They're on New Energy Work on an online course. So what is in store for us this week? Well, this week, very, very happy to have Dinah present the Ladder of the Soul. That's the first time we've ever shared this material on New Energy Work. So I'm really looking forward to it.
I'm really looking forward to
and then, yes, we all are. I've heard little bits about it and I've seen the slides. It all looks very, very interesting. And I've been wanting Dinah for you to share this information for years, actually. I think since you went to that Ted Kapchuk workshop, we've never really got round to it. So there we are.
You've forgotten. We did a session at the postgrad once, but it was
we
short.
did a little session.
It was very quick.
Very short, yeah. And then Nicola's going to be doing a session on the je, or the z, we used to call it, but it's the je, which is the spiritual aspect of the kidney and bladder. So we've got a full program for you. Hope you enjoy it. And I'll now hand over to Dinah to do her presentation once I've launched this poll, which is, how familiar are you with the virtues of the organs? And the options are, it's new to you, you know something about them, you know a lot, or you're an expert. Okay, so let's do that. Let's find out your general level of knowledge of the virtues. So there we are, Dinah. Over half know quite a bit about them. We've got a couple of people who are experts, but we have got a whole third of the group who haven't had any exposure to the virtues. So that's what you'll, that's your audience this evening.
Fantastic. Well, those of you who are experts, please accept any mistakes I make, or whatever the word is, different views. And I'm sure all the people that I've taught over many a long year have heard little bits about them, so welcome back. There we go.
Do you want me to do the slides, or would you like me to?
I can do them, can't I?
You can.
Can't remember how. Is that right? No.
I'll do them. I'll do the first one for you. Look, there we go.
There we go. Yes. Oh, then I can click, can't I? Okay. So,
yeah, you can. Yeah.
I was very lucky. In 1997, a friend of mine was studying acupuncture in York, and she invited me to join her at a seminar presented by Ted Kapchuk, and it was titled The Ladder of the Soul. And he broke all the rules of teaching. It wasn't really a seminar. He basically talked all day long. And he held our attention. We were on the edges of our seats. We laughed, we cried. It was riveting. And I've got tons of material, but obviously I've only got 20 minutes or something to talk about it. So I'm just giving you a little taste. However, a few years later came a new and updated edition of his famous book. This one, The Web That Has No Weaver. But those of you like me who had the original edition, I really recommend you get the revised, updated edition, because a lot of the material that was in that seminar is now included in that revised version of the book. And it includes expanded sections on qi and on spirit and on the spiritual aspects of the organs, including the virtues. So that's where you can get more. Okay, now I can click myself, can't I? Click.
Yeah.
So before we go on to the actual virtues, I wanted to just give a little bit of background. Sorry, I shouldn't look at the chat. So according to Ted Kapchuk, and again, this is what I've taken away from that day and from revisiting the material many times, the discussion of what is soul and what is spirit was major in the early days of Chinese medicine and the very early texts. And in fact, in the Neijing itself, there are apparently 150 discussions in section 2 alone.
Wow.
But it's rather got lost in modern presentation of Chinese medicine. And I just wanted to give a bit of a flavor of some of the underlying principles that are really significant to our view of it. And there's a quote for you from the Neijing: "We are the entire cosmos." And he talks about qi as being more than that notion we have of matter and spirit both, or matter on the verge of becoming spirit, but energy, and energy on the verge of becoming matter. That dichotomy is not relevant, because the notion of qi is that it's bigger than all that. It's basically the pulsation of the cosmos. It's the cosmic breath that unites all forms. And it's the possibility of change that's inherent in all phenomena. And human beings are seen, they are considered to be in a privileged position, as you know, between heaven and earth. And they are seen as a microcosm of the cosmos. So they contain all the qualities of heaven and of earth in microcosm. And how we create change within a person is by resonance. And as healers, what we do is we look to evoke resonance with the cosmic qi that's already contained in a person, to bring them to a fuller state of being. So if, for example, you think of a seed, the rain and the sun and the soil have qualities, and the seed has a resonance with those qualities, so that when they come together, the seed grows into a plant, it flowers. because there's a resonance between those qualities of rain and sun and soil, outside as well as inside. And in a sense, that's what we're doing. So when we're working on a spiritual level in our shiatsu, what we're looking to do is evoke resonance with the perfection that is within, resonating with the chi of the cosmos.
Yeah.
And you'll have to ask me questions later. So then I wanted to say a little bit about the soul. It's called the ladder of the soul. And the soul basically is the big Shen. Do you remember we talked about this, the word Shen? It's usually translated as spirit. And there's the spirit that the Shen we associate with the heart, which we sometimes call the small Shen. But there's the big Shen, the soul, that encompasses all 5 smaller forms of spirit. And it's said to be what differentiates humans from animals. Animals have chi and form and characteristics and reactivity and share emotions. And it's quite a few of the emotions with humans. But the thing that differentiates humans is that they have spirit, Shen, the big Shen. And it's not just something connected with our higher self or those kind of notions that we have of spirit in the West. It's, as you'll see, I've written, it's invoked by imagination, by will, by intention, by awe and enchantment and wonder. It allows human possibilities for relations outside space and time. So things like worshipping ancestors or revering Confucius, or in their terminology. It allows self-reflection. It allows self-awareness. It allows self-transformation. So following the Tao, or our life path unfolding within our awareness is part of the what is associated with the gift of the soul. And each form of the human spirit, as discussed, this is the big Shen, and then we're talking about in the human being, in medical terms, if you like, or within our terms, there's a 5-partite division of the soul. And each form of the human spirit, the Po, the Je, the Yi, and so on, are responsible for what's called a virtue. And you have to remember as well that there's a significant overlap between politics, society, as well as medicine, if you like. So there are changes over time, but there are factors that are involved with societal organization and so on. But just to hold in your mind that at birth, all those virtues are perfect within us. And they are kind of disturbed by being in the body. And if you think of the body as being, as we talked about in the very first webinar, it's like a condensation of chi down into a physical form, which then disperses at the end of life. So during that period of our life, those pure, perfect virtues are disturbed by being in our lives, just by living a life, and by the emotions that we experience. But those emotions that, you know, we tend to think of as negative and pathological or whatever, they have a value because they are the clue to the unfolding of our destiny and our ability to transform, to, oh, I'll move through. Oh, no, I'll go back. Actually, no, I will go on. So we'll work through them in the same order that we've been doing. And the virtue of the lungs that's held in the Po, the virtue of the Po is beauty. And Bao is the word preciousness, inspiration. It actually has 2 parts. The second part is justice and impartiality and fairness. It's got a kind of pristine, separate quality. And I just want to say as well that these virtues for me add a dimension to my relationship with the organ and with its, you know, it through all the levels. So when we're talking about the lungs, we're talking about the lungs themselves and the skin, and grief and positivity you did in your exercise, Cliff, do you remember? And structuring our thoughts and our material, corporeal soul, the Po. And here's another dimension, is that the virtue that's associated with the Po is beauty. And if you think of an object of great beauty, it can take your breath away. And here you can see the relationship with the emotion. So classically, the pose associated with grief and sadness. And of course, grief can take your breath away. And one of the things that you're often working with in your practice is people carrying unresolved grief and bereavement. And certainly people who are dying, facing, they're processing a lot of grief and bereavement. And Ted Kapchuk talked about how can we possibly recover from grief. And if you've been bereaved, you'll know at first it seems impossible. And what I have, has been really helpful to me in my practice, is to recognize that over time, what's lost can be, the beauty of what's lost can be recognized. And it's a unique, unreplicable beauty, and becomes a source of inspiration. And that phrase really helps me in my practice with my clients, that notion of connecting to unique, unreplicable beauty, of not only of what's lost, but again, look, I've put in there self-worth. You know, that notion we have of value. And when Nicola was talking about the Po, we talked about how the symbol for the metal is the same as the symbol for gold, and it's about self-worth and self-value. And recognizing the unique, unreplicable beauty of each individual person is something that you can really transmit in the quality of your touch when you're working with someone who is having difficulty with that aspect of their lives, valuing themselves as they should be valued. So, and my time flies, I move on. So the Yi, the virtues of the Yi are perhaps more difficult for us to relate to, because they're about faithfulness and loyalty, sincerity, dependability. And for me, a word that Ted Kapchuk used is that they are enabling. So there's I just chose that picture because of its relationship with earth and something about something you can rely on. And if I refer you back to my presentation on the Yi, because for me, that's what's really useful in looking at that virtue of the Yi, is when we think about the emotions that are associated with the Yi: worry, overthinking, ruminating, things going around and around in our minds. And what the Yi confers is the ability to recognize the needs of others. It's generous, it's insightful, and it both sees what needs to be done and what can be done. And it allows new manifestations and creative possibilities. I know we always tend to think of the liver as being associated with creativity, but the spleen traditionally has a role, or the yi rather, has a role in the ability to see what needs to be done and find ways of doing it. So it has a creative possibility. And when it's not working well, then there's a kind of sticky over sympathy for others at cost to ourselves, as well as that overthinking that makes us feel burdened. So, yeah, that's probably all I can say about faithfulness and loyalty. And I'll move on to the Shen. And this is usually described as being the virtues of the Shen are propriety and ritual, rites and ceremony. And it's interesting because through different dynasties over time, different organs were called the emperor. But we've inherited the one where the heart is the emperor. And the role of the emperor in early Chinese society was, as it is in many early cultures, it's a bridge between the heavens and the earth. So the emperor doesn't do very much, but is crucial. So at certain times of the year, goes to certain corner of the temple, dressed in particular colored robes, passes their hands over certain grains and fruits, listens to a certain type of music, bows a certain number of times. And it's all with the aim of encouraging heavenly influence to protect earth, us on earth, so that the people can flourish and we can be protected from famine and plague and flood and disaster. So it's this crucial role of interceding, if you like, with the heavenly influences by following appropriate ritual. And in terms of the emotions, Chinese not very impressed with the idea of joy. Too much joy in our lives is considered unhealthy. Too much, it's like overexcitement, agitation of mind. We're looking for a calm mind and appropriate social responses and warmth of communication. And this is another thing that's interesting about the Shen. So the small Shen of the heart is associated with our ability to connect and communicate appropriately in time and space. So it's, you know, we think of it as the most spiritual in some level, but actually it's very connected to space and time, here and now, and our ability to communicate, our ability to connect with others. And it kind of, the timeless aspect of Shen, it brings it very much into the here and now, into the present. So it again ties in a lot with societal issues around your marriageability. So you need to be able to express your emotions appropriately, or you're less marriageable in the olden days. But if we think in terms of our ability to communicate and connect appropriately, and of course, when it's very extreme, when the Shen is not functioning well, we don't just have overexcitement and agitation, we can get disturbance of Shen. The image that I remember from Ted Kapchuk is wearing pajamas in the ballroom. It's like we lose our ability to respond appropriately in the here and now. And that can lead to actual severe mental disturbance, if you like. So moving on. And this is another one that's really helpful, has been very helpful for me. The virtue of the je is said to be wisdom. And what you need to remember about all of the virtues is that they share a resonance with all of the aspects of that organ. So the emotional aspect of the kidneys we all know as fear. And you have to remember that, therefore, the virtue, wisdom, shares a resonance with fear. And another thing that's always stayed with me is the idea that if you take fear and dread of the unknown and take away all the negativity from it, you touch wisdom for a moment. So it's not wisdom about like knowing a lot of stuff. And you can't set out to get it. It comes through living your life, living a reflective life, and actually living through fear strengthens your wisdom. And do you remember that story I told right in the very first webinar about my experience of believing I would be dead by the night and going through a sequence of emotions which included fear and coming to a place where I was accepting. And that the wisdom, it's got a kind of element of doubt. So I put that abiding in faith, like the medieval sense where there is an element of doubt involved, but having faith. And if I move to the next one, we'll see the fear, existential anxiety, dread, all of those qualities that are associated with the kidneys. The je allows us to embrace the unknown without fear. And that ties in with the yin aspect of the je, which is about allowing our destiny to move through us. And this has been helpful to me personally, this understanding of the virtue of the kidneys. But it's also really been very precious to me when working with people who are dying. Just that concept of something that moves through, this is our ability to make the final transformation back, to disperse back out to the oneness. And in an ideal world, as our physical jing declines, our non-physical wisdom grows, so that we are able to embrace the unknown without fear. And last but not least, the virtue of the Hun is said to be benevolence and kindness. And each of the forms of spirit is actually linked to one of the vital substances. And interestingly, the Hun is said to be the spirit that's connected with blood. And you remember I talked a little bit about blood when I was doing my Yi thing. Blood is associated with how kind we can be to ourselves. And of course, we know that the liver is associated with anger. And that includes jealousy and envy and hatred, a whole range. It's about our ability or unkindness to oneself or to others. And the Hun confers human kindness. A lot of the treatments for the liver are associated with treatments for pain. So herbs for the liver, a lot of them are for pain. And there are two aspects to pain. There's necessary pain, but there's also unnecessary pain, secondary suffering, if you like, in the Buddhist terminology. And what we're looking to do is open to the pain so that it moves through us. And that ability to feel others' pain is part of what makes us human in the Chinese understanding. To feel the pain of taking our own space in the world, but the ability to feel the pain of others. If we push them out the way, they're suffering. So that's another thing that gives a real, another layer to the rainbow. I was saying to Cliff and Nicola beforehand, that for me, the virtues are like another layer in the rainbow of all the levels. It's just like another drop of color, just gives you a different perspective on the resonance across the bands. So I leave you with feelings of human kindness and hand over to Nicola at 1/2 on the nose. Look at that.
Thank you so much. There are a few questions, but they are quite little technical ones. I wondered if maybe you'd like to just answer them while Nicola's doing her.
Yes, I'll write in the chat.
Yeah, I think because they're mainly technical things. I think it'd be better if we just go straight on to
Cool.
Nicola's
I'll turn
presentation.
off my camera.
Oh, thank you so much, Dinah.
They absolutely loved it, by the way. You've got a string of hearts in the chat.
Pleasure. I've got so much more, but hey, it's a taste.
No, I think it reminds me so much of Pauline's whole emphasis on anti-pathogenic key. You know,
and that's the joy of it for me, is that it's.
Yeah.
I love it. Yeah, it's great stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, I go.
Fantastic. I've got a poll right here, which is to find out how familiar you are with the je. Let's find out. So Nicola's got some idea of your previous knowledge, and I'll just put this poll up. So is it new to you? You know something about it? You know a lot about it, or you're an expert? We had 2 experts before, so let's see if we've got any experts on the
And
je.
how do we say it? Je, like in French. I asked a Mandarin speaker yesterday, and he said it was z.
Z. I think it must depend on your dialect.
Oh, look at that.
Okay, Nicola, we've got a whole 1/5 people who find it who is new. We've only got 1 expert this time, but the majority of people know something about it. So I'm sure it'll be really interesting to have a bit more depth.
So I'm going to do this as an exercise. So I invite you to stand up if you're around. I'll do my slides afterwards. So spirit of water. This is from the Tao Te Ching. Nothing is softer or more flexible than water. And I think the word that Dinah had in her thing was destiny, that I'm going to connect to. But we'll do it through the Masanaga expressions. I stand. We're just getting nighttime. I'll put another light on. The lovely sunset has gone. So, welcome. I'm going to do 20 minutes, and we'll just start with a couple of Qigong exercises to connect into the whole level thing. So, physical level. Masanaga's expression was set up to run. So, physical level, we're going to start with just standing rather than running. So, just standing in your neutral position, whatever that is. And we're going to do a really classic Qigong exercise, which is the bone marrow. I love this exercise because it connects to the water as well as to the bones. So we're really getting that physical aspect of the bones. Just make a gesture of diving your hands into the sea. So if you were to imagine that you're near the sea, or if that's really impossible to imagine, any sort of water, take a handful of beautiful water, bring it up above your heads, and we're going to do cafetiere style, flip the hands down, push the water through your bones. Bone marrow cleaning. It's a very classic Qigong exercise. It was written about in 10 AD. There's a whole little book about bone marrow cleansing exercises. We do it 3 times. So push the water through your bones. One more, scooping the water, and start to think about the bones, the skull, the face bones, washing through. Imagine the water cleansing the whole skeleton, right down to below your toes. So we do that 3 times. One hand holds the kidneys, and maybe Ming Men if you can do it, the gate of life, and then the other hand does exactly the same thing. Beautiful water. Maybe from the Mediterranean, lovely, beautiful blue water, washing through the bones. And take your time. If you've got a little crooky bit, just wash a bit more water through it, washing through the hips, washing down the leg bones. And when we're doing it one-handed, you're still doing the whole body. Be really generous. 3 times. Everything's in 3s. Wash through your skeleton. Wash through your bones. My last one this side. Skull, bright and shiny. Hips, bright and shiny. When you're ready, change hands, maybe with a gesture catching the sea. Other hand on the kidney, holding the chi in your kidneys. Scooping the water from a beautiful sea. Splashing through that lovely salty water. Washing through your bones. Ribs. Oh, this big bone where we make our T cells, really important at the moment. Washing through your sternum. Washing through the bones 3 times. Splashing. It's making me jiggle. Oh, some of you are joining in. Thank you so much. Splashing. Hold the kidneys for a moment. Have that sense of anchoring the water in you. And then we do the same exercise, but this time you want to imagine a beautiful, fluffy white wave. A big one or a small one. Sometimes I imagine those little tiny waves that come up the beach, but beautiful white, frothy breaker. Sometimes I imagine a huge one. I've only seen them at Newport, really, but those huge breakers, Newport and Cornwall. Push it through your body, every bone, right, getting into the bone marrow now. The stem cells regenerating perfectly, washing out any that are not quite right. Pushing through the body. Beautiful wave of light, of water, the frothy white wave. Last one with 2 hands. One hand holds the kidneys, the other hand doing the same. The wave crashing through, the pure sea, cleansing the deep inside of your bones, cleansing you, the whole of you, right through to your bone marrow. 2, 3, washing through, every stem cell washed and perfect. Change hands, diving into the wave, catching that, flipping the hand over, washing through the body, twice more. Every bone, particularly the big ones, but every bone washed through, deep into the marrow. Washing through, if you've worked, washing through the brain, washing through. Both hands hold the kidneys for a moment. Oh, I can taste the sea. Thank you all for joining in. 2 hands. Now this time you slip your hands between the sea and the sky. So in Taoism, there's a whole lot of stuff about where heaven meets earth. So where the sky meets the sea, I think of it as just getting the sparkles off the sea. 2 hands, wash the light of the sea, the sparkles of the sea through your body. And this time maybe thinking about the surface of the bones, that wonderful blue light. 2, 3 times, everything 3 times. Beautiful light off the sea, breathing in the sparkles, breathing in that place where the sea meets the sky, all the way through, right below the feet. Wash the chi through the whole body. 1 hand holds the kidneys, do the same thing 3 times with this hand, gathering the light. Breathe it in, feel it going into every bone, even those tiny bones in your ears. 3 times, splashing through. Some people do bone marrow with changing hands each time. I nearly did it then. If that's for you, do it. Last 3. The light of the sea through the bones. Feel your bones. Feel this big bone. Feel your ribs. Feel your hip bones. Feel the femur. Both femurs. Both sides. 2 more. I'm getting out. Think of myself. Last one. Every bone sparkling clean. Both hands onto the kidneys. Hold that in your body for a moment. Stand easy. Okay. So physical level. That sense of stacking up the body with beautiful clean bones. And we're just going to step out. I'm going to steal this from yoga. I'm going to do the warrior pose. I'm going to do it really Van der Scarabelli style, so nice and easy. Just step out one side, put some weight into the front foot. You don't need to see my feet. You just step out one side. And then plug the back heel in. Bring your hands up. And imagine in front of you is one of those people you haven't been able to hug. Oh, and they're just allowed to hug you now. Imagine reaching out. Oh, I haven't seen my son for so long. I would so love to give him a hug. Just reaching out, eyes look at the person. Feel that right from your back heel, your whole energy going forward. So you're going to run towards them. Okay, release. Do the same thing the other side. We're going to step forward with one foot, your best warrior pose. Put some weight in the front foot. Plug your back heel in. Think of somebody different. My sister. Reach out, reach forward. Imagine you're looking into their eyes. You can keep your back heel plugged in so your whole body is ready to rush towards them. Okay, and release. And then the flip side is somebody you don't want. I'm going to use the Goldfinger gun pose. If guns are no good for you, just use your straight hands again. So step out one side, plug your front foot in, plug your back foot in, feel your bones all lovely and shiny inside. And someone's coming in that you really shouldn't be there, a burglar. So you're going to defend, you're going to take your gun hand up. And really, you're just ready to fight or flight. And maybe you're going to run away, let go. We'll do this warrior pose the other side. Step out, front foot heavy, front knee bent, back heel plugged in. Bring up your gun, Goldfinger, James Bond, or just nice, easy hands. But maybe a sword. You're going to protect yourself. Fight or flight. Feel your back foot strong, your front foot strong, and the whole of the spine ready to go. And release. Some of you take that further and everything else, but right now, we'll just shake out. That sense of the body being able to go forward. Right, the next two exercises are really just going to be done with your mind. I'm going to stay standing because it's easier for me to sort of get into the moves, because we're going to stay with that idea of which way to run or which way is my energy going to go. You might remember from the first week I had a lovely picture of someone thinking. So at the psychological level, at the mind level, there's a sense that the energy can move. So emotionally, when my imaginary son came in, there was a whole lot of me that wanted to go like that. So what happens when we just think? So I want you to notice your mind right now. And then what were you doing this time yesterday? So here in England, it's 7:45. What were you doing this time yesterday? And for me, my mind actually goes right behind me. There's like, what was I doing yesterday? Okay, let's do another one. What will you be doing this time next week? Hopefully coming to the last seminar. So follow your mind as it looks to next week. Maybe time is not the right thing. So let's do another couple of following your mind. How does the energy in your mind move when I say, what was your grandmother's name? What was your grandmother's name? Mine was Lillian Ada Butt before she got married. Okay, last one. Where are your shoes? I've been wearing slippers so much. You know what? I don't even know where my shoes are. But where did your mind go? My mind went upstairs. Oh, I think my shoes are upstairs. Okay, so there's that sense of the energy of which way to go is very directional. So now we're going to have a think about the je, or the z, or the je, or the z, as we used to call it. You know, like I said, I asked a Mandarin speaker yesterday, and he said z, but I'm not very good at all this Chinese. So the spirit of water, I invite you to sit down and be comfortable for 5 minutes. I think I'll join you. So the spirit of water has that sense of destiny. The spirit of water also has a sense of the imperative of life. There's something about life needing to be. So I invite you to sit down, be comfy, maybe shut your eyes. If you certainly look away from the screen, you don't have to look at me sitting here with my eyes shut. And we're going to go back to the beginning of the planet. So the planet, they say that planet Earth is about 4.5 billion years old. And I didn't used to know what a billion was, but these days we've got a chancellor who talks about billions a lot. So maybe a billion is not such a big number anymore. But anyway, our planet is 4.5 billion years old. And it's always had a lot of sea, a lot of water. It is a blue-green planet. And it's always been blue. Well, yeah, it's always been blue. Because 3/4 of it was covered with water. Still is. 3/4 of our planet is covered with water. Those seas have moved around a bit. And way back then, 4.5 billion years ago, as the water sort of became the seas, it was a bit more of a chemical soup. Some people call it the primordial soup. Delicious, amazing sea. And it only took a while before things started to happen around the edges of the sea. In a little still pool, those chemicals in the sea started to replicate. And that was an amazing thing, the amazing replicating proteins, the precursors of our DNA and RNA that are quite famous at the moment. And it didn't take long before those replicating proteins started to put a sort of boundary around themselves, a membrane. Those proteins were something. And 3.5 million years ago, the whole of the sea was full of one-celled creatures. We can find them in the limestone. We can find them in the rocks, fossils of these one-cell creatures. And then amazing thing, another amazing thing. The replicating chemicals was one thing. The next thing is even more amazing. They decided, they found a way to catch the sunlight. There was some sort of photosynthesis started to happen. So some of those sort of it's almost too much to call them one cell. They started to catch the sunshine and create energy and have energy for life. Oh, that was a big step. So we're now 3 billion years ago. And some of those algae, they became algae, rafts of algae, started to fill the sea. And they started to hit the edges. They started to be something on the land. The algae started to come out, some sort of photosynthesis going on. And then the fungi came. There was about 1 million years of fungi going over the whole land. Mushrooms the sizes of trees. And the mushrooms are just the fruit of these fungi. There was nothing to get in their way. They took over the planet. They took over the land. They didn't take over the planet. But soon on the heels of the mushroom came the plants. And plants discovered to make structures. And they made structures. Oh, big as trees. So things like the horsetails, as big as trees. And as soon as there was food, came some things to eat them. The imperative of life was coming through from the primordial soup. And we get to the time of the dinosaurs. Probably most of you know about the dinosaurs. All of you will know about the dinosaurs. And in the shadow of the dinosaurs were tiny mammals, mice-sized mammals. And from the mice came more and more mammals. And as the Dinosaurs got too big and became extinct. Maybe the meteorite came, but the mammals filled their space, and we had the start of most of the things that we know now. And then 2.5 billion years ago, no, 2.5 million, sorry, I'm getting my millions and billions. 2.5 million years ago, there's evidence of humans. It's in New Scientist this very week. Stone tools found in India, 2.5 million years old. So from those early humans, so there were different sorts of humans then, but gradually we became Homo sapiens, or human beings. And this imperative for life, the destiny, came through to us. Each one of you came through your grandparents, came through your great-grandparents, that destiny into your very being. So I want you to take a few deep breaths. Imagine your grandparents behind you, your great-grandparents. You share most of your DNA with them. But going further back, we share 97% of our DNA with all the primates. We share half our DNA with plants. So that imperative for life, right back from the beginning of the primordial soup, coming through, the life force coming through right into you right now. Your kidneys connecting to your destiny, this very body you have from your biological parents, from your biological grandparents. That humanness that is uniquely you has an imperative that has come from 4 billion years ago. Okay, take a deep breath. I want to read all the chat that's been going on while I was talking. Okay, so thank you. I'll just show you my slides. Oh, I don't know if I can release them. I have to wait for you, Cliff, to release the slides. Cool. So here we go. The Z. I'll just sort of recap what we did as an exercise. Oh, here we go. Ta-da! There we go. So we just sort of went through the Matanaga style. Bones and joints, I didn't really mention the endocrine system much except for the fight or flight with our adrenals and the courage to go forward and the courage to go back if you need to run away. And then the focus of mind. I do know where my shoes are now, I've just remembered. Excellent. And then we talked a little bit more about the will, that sense of destiny, the will of the life force coming through our ancestors right now into you, here and now. And I think I had some more pictures that went with that. Let's quick look at the time. The bones, the skeleton doing its warrior pose, the energy to run forward or run away. And I'm not sure if she really is running away or just playing, but that's the joy of children. And the focusing the mind and the will of the ancestors coming down through your family tree to you right now. And I think that's all I did. Yes. Cool.
Yeah, yes, thank you. Thank you so much. We've got lots of positive reactions in the chat. I don't know if we've got any questions so far. I think, Dinah, you've answered a lot of the questions in the chat while Nicola was presenting. So
yes, I'm sorry, people, because I was just working through as you'd suggested, and I realised that their question is miles away from my answer. So I hope you get to see them, and yeah. I may have missed some. There's one for you, Nicola. I did just see one just now about water.
Oh yeah, should we answer that live then? Okay, here we go. The spirit of water, how much is it related to grounding? Is it the connection to earth energy and therefore connection to the oneness with water?
Oh, interesting question. I tend to think of grounding as earth. And the quote I had at the beginning from the Tao Te Ching is the water finding its own level. Water goes down as far as it can. So it's a little bit different to grounding. So when we stand and ground, we're standing on the earth. If we follow that energy of water, there's a whole direction that the water will take, on and on and on. So it's more like that life imperative that I was talking about that came from the original primordial soup.
Yeah. Okay, great. So I just think, is there any other? Okay, let's see. We've got another question. Well, it's just more of a bit of feedback. Gorgeous. How do you treat the Z? Do you work on the whole kidney meridian, the spirit points on the emotional line of the bladder meridian on the back, a wonder meridian? Is there one epic on-off switch for destiny?
There's no on-off switch for destiny. Destiny is unrelenting. It's that energy of water. It's the river of life. How do I treat the Z? I wouldn't go into a treatment and go, oh, I'm going to treat the Z. But if it comes up, you treat the Z with the water meridians, of course, kidney and bladder. And then you treat it by, as we were saying in the other weeks, allowing the energy to connect to the spiritual level. So if you're working on water, you don't really need to do anything, but just allow your whole energetic field to be as expanded as you can. Maybe connect to their whole river of life. Yeah. Have a sense of their place in that billions of years.
Yeah, absolutely. It's more of a technique thing, which we've covered in other previous webinars of how to use the alignment. We did some of that a couple of weeks back. So
exactly, yeah.
Just about
we've done it
on a spiritual level. Yeah.
Go again, Dinah. I didn't hear that.
I was saying exactly that. It's just about connecting on a spiritual level with our intention. And that's one of the things I like about this idea that we are the entire cosmos. What we're doing is we're evoking resonance with the cosmic that's within all of us.
Absolutely.
And so, you know, if your intention is to strengthen the will, or the je, whatever we're calling it, it's there. It will happen with your intention and with your, as Cliff says, with your alignment and expanded awareness.
Okay, great. We've had a fantastic session. I hope that's really, I hope you've really enjoyed it as much as I have. We've just got a couple of minutes left. I'm just going to show the final slides. Next week is the final week. Oh, it's been so much fun. Yeah, we're going to, week 5, we've got a session with Nicola. She's going to be sharing some very interesting information about the different types of spirits in the spirit world, just in case you've got any questions on that, which I certainly have. And I'll be finishing up with an experiential session on the Hun, which is to do with your path through life. So it's probably a good one to finish on, isn't it? Okay, so thank you very much for turning up and coming to this session live. And I just wanted to say a massive thank you to all the people that have donated to help us run this course, and not forgetting our members. We still have members who are supporting us every month, which has enabled us to support over now 2,300 Shiatsu practitioners worldwide. And a lot of those are in a lot of difficulties, and we've been able to, because of your generosity, we've been able to keep the whole show on the road and keep all the content free of access. And the whole of New Energy Work since the beginning, which is coming up for a year now, has been 100% funded by memberships and donations. I just wanted to just really recognize that and thank you all for your support. So there we are.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
Which is that, of course, you can revisit the recordings on the course, which is available via New Energy Work. And we've been making an effort, haven't we, Cliff, to put the timings underneath each video, so you can look up, oh, I want to know when Nicola did that, or when Cliff did that. Or, so you can check, it tells you the minutes. And also, there is a forum currently within that course. So if you've got other questions that we didn't get to, it went so fast, that chat, there was such a lot in there. If you've got other questions, share them on the forum. And after the course ends, a week after, that forum will close, but you can still always ask questions on the community forum.
That's it, absolutely. And some of you have been asking about CPD points. We put quizzes on after each webinar recording, so that if you want to show that you've completed the whole thing, there will be a certificate attached to that, like all the other courses. at the end of the course if you need the hours. A few people have been asking about that. So great, that's it. An hour is up. Thank you so much, Nicola. Thank you so much, Dinah. Had a fantastic, I've had a very, very enjoyable evening. Thank you very much. And we'll see you all next week. Tell all your friends.
Bye, everybody.
Okay, bye.